Good morning, good afternoon, good evening guys. Nigel here again from Nigel's Land Rover channel, and thanks for joining me. I've called this part 3A because it's not part 4, but you knew that, didn't you? Part 4 is going to be all about fitting the actual diff itself, and there's a lot of work to do there with setting up the bearings in the front output housing and in the main casing, and that one needs to be going in and then pressed in with the rear housing to a depth of 1 millimetre. I may make a tool for that, I don't know. And then we've also got the all the gears and everything to go onto the diff and the selector for high-low. And then we've got that special nut on the end, and we've got to check all our end floats and everything, so it's going to be quite an involved little video, number 4, and I'm intending to do it tomorrow, today being Friday the 6th of March. I almost said October then, wishing my life away. Yeah, today being Friday the 6th of March, it's currently about 5:30 in the evening. It's still light, cold but sunny, which is yay. We have got another storm on the way apparently, so great. But at least we're going to get a nice weekend, I think. First nice weekend since January this will be. So yeah, so what's part 3A all about? Part 3A is all about this stuff here. Okay, so we've got our intermediate shaft here with the bearings and gears and everything, and I've got some paint. I've been doing some painting. Garage stinks actually. So where are we with this? Right, in the last video I talked about the mystery of having no circlips in the gear and having a spacer with a number 22 on it, and sort of kind of, you know, really wondering what's going on. But then I shimmed it up with 8 thou shim and found that I had sort of 5.5, 6 thou end float, so I've actually got 2 thou preload. So if I put that back together like it is, that will be absolutely fine. Trouble is, I don't like the wear on the shaft. There is 10 microns of wear on that shaft in one area. Let me see if I can get it out and show you. So if you're not sort of well versed on this kind of stuff, then you can see. Make sure that gear doesn't roll off the bench. I'll put it back there. If you look back here on this end, you can see where the rear bearing has been. Okay, or the front bearing should I say. There's not a single mark. You could just see where it's been. Here, this is where the front bearing has been, or the rear bearing should I say, and there is a step. There is some wear in it here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that shiny line there. That is actually a step. It's only 10 microns. But the trouble is, it's got the same on the other side. So basically, it's going to be 20. The bearing has kind of been kicking and spinning. And also you can see the spinning marks on the bearing. I can see spinning marks on the bearing face from this end, and I can see spinning marks on the bearing from this end, and I can see spinning marks in the actual casing. So basically I've decided, sod the expense, I'm replacing the bearings and the shaft. Now the spacer is manufactured to a set length, so somebody on the Land Rover Defender Net forums kindly responded to a question I put up on there, and basically defender2.net, the forum is called. It's a brilliant forum. They got a special slot there for Pumas, and apparently from the TD5 onwards they went away from the crushable spacer to a solid spacer. And if you go to a website called Brickcar, they list all the different lengths, and the number is IE15000, and then there's a 22, which is what mine is. So the last 2 numbers of the IE1500, whatever it is, are actually stamped into the sleeve. So if you do like me and you strip it and you put shims in there and you find out that the shaft is too short, you can work out the length you need, go on Brickcar, find the right number, order the right one from Craddock's or whatever, if you don't want to use the crush washer. I'm an engineer. I've sort of repaired and rebuilt machine tools in my days, and I have bought many preloaded bearing sets where you actually buy a complete sort of housing that goes into a machine, and you'll have outer and inner sleeves, so that when it's all clamped up it actually gives the right amount of preload. I have never known any machine tool use a crushable spacer or crushable sleeve. They always have precision machined spacers to get the right amount of preload. Now this isn't precision by any stretch of the imagination. You know, it's just like somewhere between 1 and 4 thou preload on the bearings is going to be absolutely fine, or 1 and 3 say. It's going to be absolutely fine. This one didn't have enough, obviously, because it wasn't pulled up, so which we discussed in the last video. So I was amazed as well, that little dummy thing, the sort of loop thing that goes onto the end of the flat, that was £158 if you want a new one. So I think I'll probably weld up my old one and then just grind it flat again, or even just file out that lump, because all it's doing is stopping the shaft turning while you do it up, really. And I've also been led to believe, don't take my word for it, I've been led to believe by Black Wolf on Defender2.net. He's telling me that the nut on the end of here, if you've got the sleeve, obviously you're not tightening it to get preload, you're tightening it just to a set torque, and it's 65 pounds-feet. So that's worth remembering. The other thing I don't like about this shaft, I don't know if it's the nut or if it's the shaft, but every time I put this nut on, you saw in my last video I was able to screw that nut on with my fingers, and now it's gone tight. Every time I screw it on, it goes tight. So it's a bit of a concern. But the thread on here, on the end of this thread, was a mess. I did actually record it in that video where my camera shut down, but I used a thread file and managed to get the shape back, but it seems that every time you put a knot on and tighten it, the nut goes tight. So I don't know what's going on there. But basically that's going in the bin. So as are those bearings. Well, they won't go in the bin, I'll use them for something else, I expect. So now what I've got to do is make up a tool to get, see there's the spacer, and it's got the, you can see the 22 on the end there. So yeah, so that's that. And now I've got to make up something to press these bearings out, because when you look inside here you can see there are no circlips, it's just a machined recess. So I'm going to make up a tool, I think, to press them out. I don't like banging bearings out of gears and stuff. It's asking for trouble, you get chipped teeth and stuff, you know, you just don't want that. So there we go. This is amazing. This stuff here, this is Corrosion paint, okay, and this I get from Art-Rite Paints. You can see there's their web address there, and this is a glass reinforced top coat, and it's the gloss black, this one. You can get it in pretty much any colour you want. You can request sort of pretty much any colour you want. It's amazing stuff. I'll show you the parts I've painted in a minute, and bearing in mind today it's only been like 7-8 degrees, so it's probably a little bit cooler in the garage because it's got no sun. But yeah, it doesn't really bloom. You can use it down to 5 degrees. I also use their Corrosion S primer, which I've showed you in a previous video a couple of months back. That stuff is incredible as well. You put on 2 coats of that, you put on 2 coats of this, and it's like, it's not guaranteed, but it's said to last for like 15 years or something. I should have used it on my gate railings. I'm going to try it next time I paint them. Basically, yeah, 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of that, and you use the special Corrosion thinners, which is here, and they say you can just use another thinners, and I can't think what it is. I must ask. I think it's just ordinary 2-pack thinners you can use, or xylene or something. Okay then guys, sorry about that. It seems like every dog in the neighbourhood is having a barking match at the moment, and as one stops another one starts, so it just keeps going on. Mine keeps running past the garage, so I've shut the door, and hopefully that'll just quieten down. So yeah, this paint, absolutely amazing stuff. Look them up, Art-Rite, as I showed you on there, artritepaints.co.uk. This is called the RF16 glass reinforced top coat, and with this one they recommend using the primer. The primer is just called Corrosion S. It's like a light brown colour, but look back, you'll see I've done another video on it. And then also you get the QDR, I think it's called, which is a 1-coat chassis paint, which I'm going to be using, and it's a satin black. I'm going to be using this on the axles because the axles are gloss black, but the chassis should be like a satin black. And the QDR 1 chassis in 1, some of the people call it chassis in 1, I think, Buzzweld is it, but the Art-Rite paints is called QDR. And that stuff, again, 2 coats, but you don't do any priming, you don't do any etch priming, nothing. You just put it straight over the rust. Now, obviously I'm going to have to wait until we've got a guaranteed sort of week or 10 days of dry weather, because there's no point in going and wire brushing the rust down and then bloody have it rain on it or something. So so yeah, we'll have to wait and see where we go with that, but looking forward to doing that. Now it's on the spit as well, I can get it on all angles and spray him from all angles and everything, so it'll be a really good thorough job. So let me go and show you now what sort of finish you can expect with this colourless S paint. Like I say, I used 2 coats of the RF16. Okay, well, first of all, I sandblasted the parts in my little sandblaster. Then I used 2 coats of RF16 primer, and then it's had 2 coats of this one. It's not the RF16 primer, sorry, it's the Colourless S primer. This is the RF6, the glass reinforced gloss top coat. And just to note one thing, the wire I have the parts hung off on gadget. I hate painting on wires, but I have no other choice. I've got the parts on wires which are hooked over the rafters in the garage roof, and the one with the brake back plate on decided to try and straighten out. So I had to sort of stop painting, get up on a step and sort of wrap the wire around the bloody rafter to stop it collapsing, and then it touched my jumper, so it got covered in fluff. So that had to be rubbed down and redone and everything. Oh, everything's a chore. So let me show you this stuff and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so back to normal garage view, and you can see here, this is how the parts start out. This is a steering bracket, and you can see we've got a lot of rust on there, this is why I've actually been building the thing, because every bracket on the vehicle is like this. There's a lot of rust, surface rust coming and creeping underneath other brackets and stuff, so this is the reason I'm doing this work. So basically that'll go in the sandblaster, it gets sandblasted, and I get the same treatment as what I'm about to show you. So here is this is one of the transfer box mounts, as you can see, all nice and glossy, looking lovely and shiny. Then this is one of the output shafts. This is the rear output shaft. This one goes inside the brake drum, and there is the brake drum. And as you can see, I walk around with the camera. You can see there I am with my camera looking at you. Ooh, hello. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty good stuff. That some dust fell on it, I think, but I mean, it's a brake drum. I'm not going to worry about that. We've got the back plate here. Now this had to be rubbed down between coats, as I said, because it was all covered in fluff. But you can see there, you know, it's nicer than it was when it was new, and it's a lot better quality paint, because all it had before was some thin electrically applied or electrostatically applied black stuff. There's another bracket there. New CO2 bottle. Oh yeah, this company here, SGS. Look them up. They're so cheap. Really cheap. There's the bracket there which goes on top of the transfer case and holds the wires. It goes onto the high-low shifter thing, and then there's the front output. You see masked off the flange faces, but got paint inside there and everything. So the one downside to this paint, and it's because it's so cold, is it does take a while to dry. It's still, I can touch it, but it's still just tacky. You know, if I picked it up and held it, I would leave finger marks in it, I think. But yeah, it can just stay here overnight now. But the trouble is, it's going to go down to 0 tonight, so it probably won't cure at all. But if I put it in the house, because it's not cured, if I put it in the house, it won't. It smells. It's like kind of, you know, like gloss paint when you do skirtings and stuff. It's like that. So there we go. So give that paint a try. It's bloody awesome stuff. I mean, look at how shiny that is. That's the shiniest brake drum I know of on a Land Rover. Hello. So there we are then, guys. There we have it. So that's been part 3A. Just really a bit of a quick update. I know it's nothing much to show, but it's just telling you basically what my findings are, and now you know as well. I didn't know there'd been changes. I didn't know that the TD5 had the non-collapsible spacer, the solid spacer rather than a collapsible spacer. So we all learn something every day, don't we? So if you're watching this, Mike, I'm going to send you my collapsible spacer now, so you'll have a spare one. And as I say, this colourless paint, awesome stuff. I'm not sponsored by them. I get nothing from them. I tried this because I watched Land Rover TV, which is now the Trailer Fitters Toolbox, I think. And he used it. I forget his name now. He used it and it looked bloody brilliant, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I'm really impressed with it. What I'm really impressed with is his anti-corrosion qualities. It's you know, like I say, 15 years or something over rust. So they use it on all sorts of steel structures in the industry. and then obviously Arkwright Paints buy it and put it into smaller containers for us, because it's not the cheapest paint in the world. Be warned about that, but it's bloody good, very good. Just as an idea to let you know how good the primer is, I know I've mentioned this before, but in case you haven't seen it, when I first did my priming, if you go back and watch that video, I got a steel bracket. It was like I think it was a roll cage mounting plate from a Marcos, and it was just rusty. So I think I brushed it off, and I sprayed it with Carola's primer, and it's been outside on the bench ever since, and we've had the wettest February on record. It's been disgusting. The weather's been absolutely dire, as you know, and it hasn't rusted. And my plan is to leave it out there for 6 months, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. So the biggest issue is obviously where I hung it up to paint it, there's a bit of a bare metal area around where the wire was, so I think it started to rust there. And also one day I dropped it, so it chipped the paint on the corner, so we can't blame the primer for that. But you can see the other areas where it's all covered, and it's just, there's nothing coming through. It's incredible stuff. Much better than Moroxide, much better than Moroxide. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. As I say, part 4 is going to be all about fitting that diff, which I know that a lot of you are going to love. It's probably going to be a long one because there's a lot to it, and then after that we'll do the final assembly. My basic plan is, that's something else I want to say actually, my basic plan is to build the whole transfer box up dry, get everything all set up, then take it all apart, make sure everything's spotlessly clean, and then rebuild it with all the sealants and everything. I don't want to start getting sealant on, then finally got to start taking stuff off and changing shims and things. So that's the way it's going to go. The other thing is, piece of advice for anybody that's new to these transfer boxes like I am, my advice to you would be, don't buy anything until you've had the box apart and put it all back together again. Alright, because basically it wasn't until I put the input shaft back in that I discovered I had massive bearing preload. So I bought some bearings and shims. Then I've discovered this, so I've bought a shaft and bearings. And I bought the diff fitting kit, so I know I'm okay there. I've got everything I could ever need. But I could have saved myself a lot of money if I'd have just bought a set of bearings, you know, the set of shims or whatever, and not bought all these little bits and pieces, because Dave Ashcroft stuff is great quality. I mean, you only get top-notch quality. You don't get any rubbish. I mean, you can get these things from Brit Park for about £16. No. You get the Ashcroft one, it's £28. I guarantee you it's going to be awesome. So basically, that's what I should have done, because the thing is, every time you order something from Ashcroft, you're paying £10 plus VAT for the postage. So I've like thrown away 30 quid when I could have just spent 10. So yeah, my advice is build the gearbox up dry, find out exactly what you need, because he does sets of bearings. He does a complete rebuild kit if you want all the gaskets and everything. But if it's a newer one like mine, you haven't got any gaskets. So there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all maybe tomorrow for part 4, and yeah, if not, it'll be Sunday, I guess, and then we'll go from there. See you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.